Guys, we're back. Your favorite UFO debunking show. We're still here. We're still doing it. I took a few days off. Okay, I was away. But I'm back now. Okay, so I apologize for the little delay in regular uploads. But we continue with full speed ahead. And I've got two clips for you guys today that we're going to look at. One is actually the Solar Eclipse UFO that's been floating around. So we're going to look at that, try to make sense of it, explain it, debunk it. And the other one is this one. No, it's not that one. I'm sorry. This is my poor attempt of injecting humor into this format. No, the other one that we're going to talk about later on is actually much harder to debunk, and I'm not even sure I can debunk it, so I need a little bit of your help on that as well. But let's get started on the first video, which is the Solar Eclipse UFO that's been floating around the social medias. I'm sure you've seen it. I'm going to play it for you guys without sound, though. Oh, do you see that? Do you see it float? Oh, look at that. It floats right behind the clouds. I can't play the sound for you guys, okay? Because there's loads of swearing, like, what the F was this? I don't know why they would talk like that. But this is like in, where is it? Arlington, I believe, Texas. But here's what's fascinating about this clip. If it would be just this one clip, I wouldn't probably even talk about it. But there's a whole bunch of them. Oh, I can't play the sound as well. Look at that. That's a different clip, okay? Probably of the same thing. People are recording this. Obviously, you know, it's no coincidence if there's a solar eclipse. Everyone's pointing their phones to the sky, so people would naturally capture everything that's happening from various angles because they are recording anyway. But here's another angle, and that's also not the only one. Like, there is a whole bunch of, you know, this is like the Free Press Journal, I don't know, like a newspaper site or whatever, and they put together a little compilation of all the videos that show the exact same thing from various angles. Now, I don't know how many angles there are exactly, but there is a whole bunch, so I guess that excludes the option of this being CGI, right? I have to assume that this is a real thing that people actually witnessed. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know why people would think this would be aliens or a UFO. You know, people say, I found this one quite interesting. Great find. When have we ever seen a video of multiple people saying, whoa, WTF, oh my god, did you see that? This has multiple layers of credibility, especially with the video showing multiple shots in Arlington. Exactly. That was not the shadow of an airplane. Okay, not the shadow of an airplane, confirmed. I have news for you. Unfortunately, that's exactly what it is. I mean, let's be honest. I'm sure you guys guessed this by now. Now, funny enough, we know that NASA was doing tests or recordings or measurements of the eclipse while the eclipse happened, so they were flying around jets. Also, we know that there obviously is not only Arlington Airport close by in the close vicinity, but also like US Air Force bases and stuff. So it's fair to assume that this was a NASA jet flying by. And just for reference, you can see videos like this when you can find them, where you can see actual commercial airplanes casting a very similar shadow. Notice that you barely see the wings in this one as well. Here's another example. This one does cast a shadow, and here you can see the wings slightly more defined, but obviously ultimately whether you see the wings or not depends not only on the shape of the aircraft. So if it's not a commercial airplane, it might be a jet that has like a more triangular shape. So the shape of the wings are less defined, and they would be less defined in the shadow as well. And also it depends on the distance of the plane to the clouds. This plane, in this particular example, flies very close to the cloud, so you see an almost one-to-one trace of the shape of the aircraft on the clouds. If the aircraft would be much higher and have a different shape, you will get a very similar effect than the one you see here. And also, notice if you actually look at the video, let me see if I can pause it, you can see a little bit of wings. Do you see this? Left and right from the plane. They're not defined as wings, so to say. Also, the shadow moves very fast, which indicates to me, yes, it's a military jet and it flies quite high above the clouds. But also, you can see almost a little, do you see this? Like there's a little bit of a shadow of a wing here. There's like a line that is on the other side. So it's not that there is no shadow at all. It's just, I think the shadow has been distorted due to the distance of the object to the clouds being very high above it. So, easy one. This one's been debunked. Okay. But let's get to the second one. And as I said before, this one is a trickier one. This is not easy to debunk, okay? I watched this. Someone shared this with me on our Discord. Join the Discord, link in the description. Okay, you can share your clips with me there. And if they're as good as this one, I will talk about them. Now, it's a 2-minute 26 video. It's a few years old. It has been allegedly debunked by Mick West in a separate video. We're going to look at that, but I dare to question that debunk by Mick West, actually. I don't think he's considered all the factors in his debunking video. But let's take a look at this video first, and you guys let me know down in the comments what you think. So note that you can see another plane there. You see the contrails. And look at this object, right? And there's a bunch of planes. So the sound you're hearing is from that private jet or whatever that is, flying very close by.
What the hell is that?
What is it? It's shining in the sun, reflecting the sun. You saw it. Now watch this. Ooh, did you see that?
Oh, what in the...
Oh.
Okay, I'm confused.
We can tell.
That is not a goddamn airplane. That's an airplane.
Right. Note that in this airplane we just looked at, you can see the wings, right? They were.
Stop, Dozer. Stop it.
Dozer! Get out of the way, Dozer. Not now. Dozer wants to play. He's like, oh, we're running? We're running? Yes?
It's right there.
Look at that.
That thing doesn't have any goddamn wings.
Notice that it does move at it does seem to move at a fairly rapid speed, right? It's not like, let's say, a balloon that would slowly drift in the sky and then also potentially rotate or something in the wind. It does move in a straight line at a fairly rapid speed, it seems. It doesn't have contrails. It doesn't have wings. And we've seen several other planes at various distances and sizes, just to compare it directly, that did have wings, where the wings were very clearly...
Dozer, you're crazy.
Oh, Dozer. Come on, Dozer. Really? Not now. Dozer's out of control. Do you see this? Here's another example. And yes, you can see... this plane, for example, also doesn't have wings. It does have the contrails. And keep in mind, like, contrails depend on how high in the stratosphere, but how high in the sky you are. You know, different heights will have contrails or not. So I'd say that the contrails are missing is not really a piece of evidence. Okay, that's fine. Also note that, like I said, this plane that you see here doesn't show the wings as well. But what we notice is that this plane, as well as the other planes we saw before, are much smaller than this particular object, right? And we've seen planes earlier in this video that are really high up in the sky, and you can clearly see a little bit of like wings there, right? If you look at this, this is clearly at least some kind of, you know, it emulates like a triangular shape or something with like a body, a fuselage, and some wings and stuff. So the problem I have with this is that the size of this object doesn't really line up with the other airplanes, because I think it's fair to assume that this object, as long, as clear, as big as it is probably closer to the camera than this plane that we see later on, which is much smaller, much further away, but it does show the wings. So how does that make sense, right? That just doesn't make sense. If you have an object closer that's supposed to be an airplane and it doesn't show the wings, but then you have one that's much further away and you can't see the wings, things don't line up. And then also there is this weird movement behind the tree. I'm sure you noticed it, right? Like, look at that. Look how it seems to bounce back and forth. Right. So there are a few question marks about this footage. Again, it's a few years old. It's been talked about. I'll link Mick West's debunk video down in the description so you can check it out yourself. But one more important point to mention on this clip is that this is not the only clip that recorded this, okay? This video, as it said in the title, was recorded in Wichita. And here's another video that lines up exactly on the time and date of someone else also in Wichita recording the same, or what seems to be the same object. Now, this guy doesn't zoom in as much, so it kind of remains a little line on the sky, on the firmament, but he's the same. He's like, this thing doesn't have wings. Like, I've seen planes 1,000 times. I'll link all these videos down in the description, by the way. You can check them out yourself. But he's equally confused, right? He's like, what the hell is this? This video is not as good, so we don't need to look at it in full length. And then there's also a whole news report, including another video and a bunch of reporters talking about it, where people recorded what seems to be the same object also in Wichita at the same time. So right at this point it gets interesting, because when I first saw the movement behind the tree, I was like, yeah, that's like, you know, that's like a tracking error. Something is messed up with the tracking. The object is CGI. Someone put it in and they messed it up. I don't think anymore that's the case. We have like these several corroborating reports and videos that all show the same object. I think it's fair to say that that object actually was in the sky. But let's go through these points, the challenges, and go through them one by one and see whether we can debunk them. First one being no contrails. Briefly spoke about it. Not every airplane has contrails at all time. It depends on the height. Remember at the beginning we saw this private jet coming in. That doesn't have contrails because it's at a quite low altitude, so it wouldn't have any. So I'd say the contrail argument just falls flat. Okay, that's not really an argument to say because it doesn't have contrails, it must be aliens. Now the irrational movement behind the trees, when looking at it in a bit more detail, can actually be explained a bit easier. Now, I'd like to reference Mick West's video here, and he's kind of doing an experiment with a similar airplane. And look how it moves to these trees now, right? Because he's moving the camera, and the effect is pretty much exactly the same. So I think it's fair to assume that the irrational movement behind these branches is most likely caused by the lady moving the camera, relative to the branches. It's basically parallax effect. The branches are much closer to the camera, so you move the camera, the branches move faster than the plane, and you get this effect, okay? So I think the irrational movement behind the branches also doesn't explain anything. It's not any indicator of anything paranormal or alien or anything out of the ordinary, okay? I don't think that adds to it. But there are two more things that are unusual, okay? First one being that it doesn't have wings, and we get to that in a second. And the other one being, at 28 seconds, you can kind of see, and we're going to flick through this, right? One by one, frame by frame. Look how the object now goes behind these branches, right? Look at it. It goes behind the branch. And here, it seems to protrude in front of the branches. And people pointed this out in the comments on Reddit and stuff under the video, saying like, how come this object blocks out the branches, right? Because you can clearly see there's a branch here, right? Like a little black branch that holds this leaf. Then as soon as the object goes past it, you see it seems to actually black out these branches and almost go in front of them. Now that can be explained as well. That is because the object is far away. It's very, very bright. Notice that exactly in this moment, it is pretty much reflecting the sun at the brightest spot that it can be. So the brightness and the lack of detail caused by this, what is presumably a mobile phone camera, almost overwrites small details within the lens of the tree. Notice that it doesn't black out all the branches, right? Like here, the thicker branches it goes behind, but the very thin ones, the light is just so bright that it almost covers up the branches. So again, that is not an indicator that anything unusual is happening here. So the only thing that remains really unusual to me is the lack of wings. And I'm not going to lie to you guys, I can't explain it. I do think that it is probably an airplane, the way it moves, the way it flies. But again, this object and its size seems so much closer to the camera than, for example, this plane, which is clearly much further away, but clearly has wings. Now, it might be something that the wings are exactly in the wrong angle. And you get this a lot if you have a camera that's quite garbage, and you zoom into airplanes like this, you just don't see the wings. But then if you use a much better camera for the same airplane, you do see the wings. Also notice that these wings are cast in shadow, right? This is often the case with airplanes because they are underneath the plane. So if they fly exactly in the wrong angle, note how this back wing here almost perfectly blends into the background. Here's another example where you can see the wings obviously being cast in shadow. So for example, this might be an explanation, right? Because the wings in this particular airplane are on top of the plane. It's a smaller airplane. The wings are on top and they almost perfectly blend into the background. So that, in my opinion, is still a more likely explanation than aliens. But nonetheless, in the original footage, the size to me just doesn't match up, right? This plane being really, really far away, being tiny while the wings are visible, and the object we're actually looking at is much closer, much brighter, much clearer to see, but for some reason we can't see anything at any point throughout this whole video that would indicate wings. So guys, let me know in the comments what you think. Do you think it's aliens? Aliens finally confirmed? Because I really can't make much sense of that particular detail. Again, personally, I think it probably still was an airplane. It might be one of those moments where just the things line up perfectly, right? It's the perfect angle where the sun hides the wings because of the shadow. Maybe it's a specific type of airplane that is very silver. I don't know, maybe it's a military type of craft or whatever it is. And it's just a few factors coming together that all align and give you this illusion of this actually being just like this cylindrical object, Tic-Tac shaped UFO? Don't know. Leave your thoughts on this down in the comment section below. This is an intriguing case. Thanks so much for sharing this with me on the Discord. Couldn't really debunk it 100%. Love the footage, and I'd love to get more of this from you guys. Thanks so much for watching. I'd also appreciate to hear your stories of the solar eclipse. Did you get a good view of it? Share any of your thoughts and experiences on that down in the comment section as well. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video. Smash the like button if you did, and I hope to see you in the next one. I'm out. Bye.